So again, thank you for attending today. I did mention to you earlier, and I'd taken the responsibility of muting the call, so thank you for that. After the call, we will send each of you a email containing all the information from a pricing point of view, specification. So, to the point of the presentation. CIS, or we've in the Business One channel, it's known as the CIS configurator. It's also known as the B1 configurator. And for those of you who were probably on previous presentations, I'm just going to go a little deeper and show you how our solutions work with SAP in one of two ways. It can be used from a production order, just creating the bill of material based on answers selected in the configurator. And we do support production bombs, sales bombs, and assembly bombs. And again, the choice is yours whether you use a bill of material, whether it's needed to be displayed and used in the system. And we also have the ability to create an intelligent item number because we are finding more and more that companies like to have some intelligence in their item numbers. And again, I'm going to show you just an example of how that comes into SAP also. So the first way, as I said, is using, or to clarify, with SAP internally, using launching a sales order or a sales quote. The second way is because our solution works in a browser, it lends itself very nicely to be used externally for SAP users, not necessarily internal users, but users such as salespeople, customers, resellers, etc., etc. It's a web portal. We call it a quote builder. And again, it allows that non-SAP user or an internal user to come in and create quotes or orders outside of SAP. And again, regardless of how many quote builders use the portal, the quote builder application requires only one professional user license at all time. The price of each item added to a quote comes from the price list associated within the customer, so it is in real time. And also the business partner records in SAP are synced to the quote builder. And the quote builder is very good. It centralizes all the quote activity in a user-friendly lookup. This is just an example of one of our customers who use the quote builder with SAP. It's really ideally suited to companies who generate a high volume of sales quotes and orders. Users can create quotes and orders for custom products literally in a matter of minutes. And again, the configurator launches from the quote screen. The user simply answers questions to create the custom configuration. And this screenshot, as I mentioned, from a customer, this particular customer is probably processing 300 to 400 orders every day. So all of their effort is literally in the quote builder, and it's saved as a quote, revised as a quote, and then ultimately it's generated or pushed into a sales order created in SAP. There's one of two ways that the quote builder can be used. As I said, it can can be used to generate sales quotes, and when the quotes are required or changed to an order, it will generate a sales order in SAP, or it can actually come into SAP as a sales quote. And the orders can be added with or without bill of materials. So again, that's a choice on the setup. But effectively, the orders contain SAP item codes, the correct pricing, and the questions and answers from the configuration where needed can also be stored and be retrieved from the sales order. Sales orders can be released to production and or copied to an invoice with those configured items. So the configurator, again, it has a number of options that you can elect to use. You could use graphics, you can have a number of ways you can choose the items, etc., etc. But it ensures all the relevant items are synchronized from SAP. Pricing is real time, as I mentioned earlier, based on the business partner master record, and it can be used as a guide in selling process using adaptive questions and answers. And effectively, the product expert who spends their time in the product builder, the model builder, is embedding the logic of the product in the system. And again, talking about the model builder, being used in one or two ways, the configurator always comes with the model builder. And as I said, this is where the product experts spends their time creating models which are really the product, your customer's product, where it creates the questions and answers and creates the dependencies, the exceptions, etc., etc. So effectively they build and maintain all the logic and rules that are needed for all of their products. It's very intuitive, it's very quick to learn. You do not need to be a programmer, so programming skills are not required. Training is a number of hours. It is not days or months, it's literally a number of hours. We typically recommend 8 hours of training. And this is where they can create the exceptions, calculations, and any relationships used for, whether it be for a number of questions, a number of answers, based on and assigning items and graphics. And again, you can add and manage all the items and their attributes. So just to summarize my introduction, basically we give the client a tool set that allows them to build and create their models quickly and easily. They have options of using SAP internal users for a starter, and then adding a second, the portal, as and when they want to. Or obviously they can do it from the start, but the point being it's flexible and it's scalable. So I'm going to jump now straight into SAP, and then we'll show you how it works, and we'll go to the second option also. Let's make this a little bit better. Okay, so 9.1, again, just on our system, as you'll see when we load up for a sales quotation or sales order. Additional to what you may have is the smart part number column and the configure, the two buttons that are related to the management of creating a configured item. The smart part number, again, as you all know, it's optional. It can be switched on, switched off the column. So again, it's just showing you in this instance as an example. And again, based on the customer record or the partner, the price list that is assigned to Maxitech in this case will display, will have real-time pricing that comes through the configurator. Clicking on the configure button will launch the browser that today comes on my other screen, but effectively it generates a list of products that are visible or made visible by the product expert to obviously allow to create quotes with those items. So I always like to start on something that's simple that I know obviously we've got some variations in there and some rules set in there, but there are no limit to the number of models. There's certainly no limit to the number of questions and answers also in each model. So the user interface, as you see in this example, loads up with a couple of images displaying, and it's set to a taut liner or a curtain-sided vehicle by default. And again, as I mentioned earlier, there are options allowing the product expert to display what they want to display in each of the quadrants. You can see here that I'm actually moving my quadrants around, and that's nice because obviously it gives you flexibility, allowing you, if you were to use images, and you're not limited to single images. There can be multiple images. It is dynamic, so effectively based on my selection here, whether it be a flatbed, whether it be a van, or whether it be taut liner, it will add any of the images that have been assigned to the answers, or a number of answers behind the system, and it will also display or add the relevant items and the price based on my selection. How the system works behind the scenes is in the Product Expert. You can see that the next question, if I choose my question being, is it a single-wheeled axle or a twin-wheeled axle, you can see that I'm assigning a thumbnail, and again, based on my selection, you can see that the next question is dependent on my previous answer. So in this example, if I see twin-wheeled axles, you can see that the next question is, how many of the twin-wheeled axles do you want? If I go back to the single-wheeled axles, you can see that the next answer then becomes what's the quantity of the single-wheel axles that you want? And again, in each case, you can assign or make a default. The system is pulling a graphic based on this example as what we've created a relationship. So if there's a taut liner with a single-wheeled axle and 3 axles, I'm actually displaying a graphic that has been assigned to that relationship behind the scenes. And again, that's a choice. You don't have to use graphics. It's just there. I suppose I've always been taught, sizzle sells. So it's entirely up to the customer. But more importantly, it is actually capturing the quantity of the components, obviously, of the wheels, of anything that is assigned behind the system. In this case, we have choice of tires, we have a choice of Firestone and Bridgestone, and you can see if I was to change direction, and this applies at any time during the configuration. If you change direction, it's always checking to see if there are any rules that need to be enforced. And in this case, there is one because it's got the display, the dialogue being displayed. And this is telling me simply if I choose twin-wheeled, it just has a different tyre choice. Instead of Firestone, it has Continental. So again, it's just showing you there are some dependencies behind the scene. Another example, if I choose ABS, then of course the next question is, or could be, which axles do you want the ABS to be on the axles? That's dynamic also. So if I choose 2 axles, then go back to that previous answer or question, you'll see that it displays based on a previous answer. And if I was to simply say no, it would just bypass that question completely. So again, it's just showing you that based on any of the answers in the configurator above it will allow you to, it'll automatically calibrate and ask the relevant questions based on previous answers. This is an example of a user input. Again, you can create ranges and you can actually create, you can use the exceptions to build off those ranges. In this example, if I use a 42 foot, it will allow me, and obviously go to the next question, and it will allow or calculate the materials in this example based on the length, the width and the height. But you'll see that if I put in something different, it will update the quantity based on that calculation, the invisible calculation that has been created behind the scenes. Okay? And again, just to show you, if I wanted to do a certain size above my range, it will tell the user that they can't move forward, but they have to be within the parameter of the rules that have been set behind the scenes by the model expert. So once we've finished and once we go to the last question and I just press continue, it'll tell me that my configuration is complete. Again, as I said earlier, you can change direction at any time. In this case, the flatbed takes out the height question. If I go to the van, it'll add the height question, and certainly if I go to the taut liner, if there were any other questions and answers that need to be answered, then I simply go to the question that has a question mark raised and confirm my answer. Regardless of what we are displaying, whether it be item list, whether it be the description, the quantity, or even the price, and you can have this just right at the end of the configuration if you wanted to. Whatever we are displaying or not displaying, we capture everything behind the scenes. We're capturing the bill of material. We're generating the item list and their quantity. We're also capturing the questions and the user's answers. And if a graphic is being used, we'll even capture that also. So again, as I said, the model builder, the product expert, when they are creating the logic, they're going to choose to display what they want to display. But regardless of what is or isn't being displayed, we do capture everything. I press the save and exit. I then press the Get Configuration, and what it does, it goes into SAP and checks to see if this item list, this identical item list, has been generated before. And if it has, it will use that same bill of material number. If it has not, then we will create the next sequential bill of material number holding that, obviously this unique list of items. And going forward, every time a configuration is created, it will indeed check to see if a previous one has been, a configuration has been created. Certainly now from a quote, standard as you know, functionality, I can post that, and I can also copy that to a sales order that allows me to take this configured item with its bill of material and put through to a sales order, which will ultimately allow me to post it and add it to production or release it to production. Okay, so there's my last order that comes in at order number, or the order has been assigned 453. Now, I just want to go back and create perhaps one other quotation just to show you the smart part number. So in this example, I'm just going to go for one that I'm very familiar this week, which is a type of, well, a gun. And again, same logic applies where obviously dependencies can be created. So based on my selection, I can apply, certain logic based on answers selected. In this particular product, I started to build a smart part number based on the type or the series, and that series became a CDX. So if I go to this one here and choose whether it be a Freedom or even a Guardian, you can see now that I'm having, or I'm displaying something intelligence. And in this case, I've just got, it can be as little or it can be as long as it needs to be. Again, from a pricing point of view, this is reading the partner, the master partner master record. So whatever the price is, it displays accordingly. Again, in this instance, it has rules set. So if I was to choose the 260 Remington, it only gives me a choice of 3 rails. It also only gives me a choice of, well, 4 choices of barrels. There could be 8 choices. But the point of this exercise is just to show you that based on my selection, it's building an item list, and you can see here that I've got a smart part number. Okay, and then I'll just go to the next one down, and we'll just do something different, maybe the Patriot Light. Just going to see if there's a different one that allows me to, there you go. This one, the CDX30, also not only has a range of, there's no ranges, it's defaulting to the relevant twist that comes with it, but I also have options that are available with this particular gun. And you can see in here, based on my selection, it's adding the items, it's displaying an information image that is assigned to it should it need to. So that's just showing you that we're capturing the items, the components, but also in this case what we're doing is we're capturing the intelligence and bringing that part into the smart part number. And as you can see there, the CBM 181 is a new build, and therefore that list has been created or assigned to a bill of material 181. Okay, so covering it fairly quickly, but just effectively, that's how we work with SAP from an internal point of view. Now, as we said earlier, and we ended up on the last order of 453, I'd now like to go over to our access of the web portal. And the web portal is where obviously the external users would come in and create quotes, revise quotes, etc., etc. The portal is themed to, obviously, so it's not has our livery, it has the company's livery. You can see this morning I built a very quick example for this particular CloudEX user. If I do a perform search, I can see the history of this user who has obviously created a quote, it's been superseded, and then ordered. And if I double click into the order, you can see that it's brought back the order number 452. And I believe 453 was the one that we last created. But for the purpose of the presentation, I'd like to just go in and create a quote and to show you. So I'm going to start by selecting a customer, and we'll use the same one with the same, literally the same price that's assigned to it as used in SAP. So everything in SAP will flow up into the quote builder. Shipping information, customer information, pricing information, etc., etc. And as I mentioned to you, pricing is real time. So the item used will display the price that is assigned to the customer record. We can have a number of pricing fields if you have post-tax, pre-tax, default tax rates, etc., etc. Discounts, freight that may be editable or added to the quote during the process by the sales team. Anything like description, shipping instructions, notes can be basically switched on, used or not, and effectively it's your choice whether the customer uses them. They can be internal notes, so just obviously CSRs use these, or they can be external notes that we can put in here. And again, what we're putting in this particular box will carry through to the quote I'm just going to generate. You can also see that we have a change log, so we've captured the header information. So again, these are things that can be switched on. It's your choice on how what are used, or the customer's choice on setup. When we're submitting orders, then we will need to request a delivery due date, and of course they can manage and the expiration dates behind the scenes. So if they wanted to put in this case a 60 days or 15 days, they manage all of that also. Again, just going to put in a reference here, just for test 2. So that reference, you can elect for that reference and even the notes to come through to SAP. One way or two different ways to add items, if you allow this, the external users to just add stock items. Again, the price is based on the customer record, so you can just add a stock item. Or similar to how we launched the configurator in order entry, we can just search for a product and it will fire up or filter based obviously on all the models that are made active by the product expert. So we'll go and do the same trailer. We'll try and do the same bill of material, but I doubt I'll be able to do that because of the size. But just to show you here, exactly the same browser, exactly the same model being used, this obviously being in the quotation, in the quote builder as the web portal. Once we've saved it, it will put it back onto a line item. And again, there are options on how you display these items. It can be as it is, a single line item. It can be, obviously we can change the quantity. They can have discounts per line item, things like that if the salesperson is allowed to give a discount. Or it can be expanded out with items that are either priced or unpriced, items with quantity or without quantity. And that's the same also on the quote that is generated out of the box, where effectively it generates a quote with the line item, the header information, and again your choice or the customer's choice on on the components beneath it, whether they can be priced, unpriced, quantity switched on, quantity switched off. And that just shows you very how it comes over. You'll see here by default we've assigned our brochure, and that's very important, because if the company wants to assign their terms and conditions by default, they can do so. If they want the user to go and allow them to add another document, you can see there that the B1 Configurator brochure is default. But if I wanted to go and add another one, I would simply add it, add and close, save it, and that assigns the PDF that has been managed by the company. And now you can see that I have 5 documents that are in there. Duplication, I'm sorry, but you can see the process. Okay, so once it's saved and exit, in the dashboard you can see it has a created status, and clearly you can search on all of the statuses in the web portal. Should the customer come back, and obviously we want the customer to come back, and basically before we actually want the customer to come back, we need to submit it. And this is really locking the pricing up. You see at the bottom the configure, delete, edit, copy. once we make this, or once we submit this, the status changes and it takes off all the navigation buttons, telling the system that this price is locked up. And again, should the user then come back, or should the salespeople need to change the variables, price, or whatever needs to be, whatever limitations they are set to the user, we would revise it. And this allows the user to simply come back to the configured product, double click it, and go into it and change any of the variables based on new variables that apply. Go into the size and make it a smaller trailer. Go to the height, go to the width, and you can see, basing on that, it's updating it. And once they've changed their variables, they may even delete this configuration and go to a new configuration. Once it's updated, you will see in the dashboard it shows the most recent quote with the extension number. But again, as you see, because the include revisions box is checked, it will show the previous one in the system. Okay, and once we're happy with that, once we've made this and we want to submit it or simply order it, it will go to SAP, and as I mentioned earlier, 453 was the last order that was posted. You can see now that 454, the order number, has been brought back from SAP. So we've finished on 453, we go to 454. There's my customer reference, SAP Test 2. I think I've got an external notes in the remarks, and you can see we've done our job quite successfully by bringing over the quote that has been changed to an order into SAP with a bill of material. Okay, so that's my little presentation on both internal and external users. And now I would like to go, again, going quite nicely, and I apologize if it's too quick, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull over the model builder, which is where we do the logic. I don't want to spend a lot of time in here, but I just want to show you some very simple, show you the system and show you how easy it is to create and maintain models. As you see in here now, whether I filter my models based on active or inactive, you can see that I have all of my activity, or all of my models that are available to be used in both SAP and also the web portal. We can create and edit existing models. We can even import and export models from a support mechanism. We could actually, if we wanted to also, change or find and replace items, we can even find and replace simply by highlighting the models. Type in the item number and replace with that one. Each model has a revision. So again, if this particular one, which I believe is very new, if there's some commonality between different products, you can get it to a point and then copy it and go off at a tangent. And clearly we can test and test the model, no problem at all. So I'm going to probably take this model here, and I'm going to copy the model, which again, a nice feature in its own, allows you to create or copy all the logic from one of the models that has been created before. I'm going to make it inactive, so it's not available for the sales team, and this allows me then to go and change my logic, add new logic that's needed in this particular model. So again, just some very high level, you can see that if I change or switch off the composite image pane and I test it, all it will show is, when we run the product now, it'll just show the images. Or the other way around, if I was just to change put the items on, it'll just show the items. So it's very flexible, and again, has some nice options that the actual product expert can use. Moving to the question level, the beauty of the product is, in its simplistic sense, it allows the user to select the best type of question that is needed in the model. For instance, in this example, the trailer, you can only select one option. But if it's changed to a multiple select, you can see straight away that instead of the drop down, it becomes similar to a radio button, allowing you to check, obviously check those boxes. And based on those boxes, you can see there that it's adding not one, but it's adding more images, and it's certainly updating the items also. And again, as you might have mentioned, saw that I've got a default button there also. Adding items can be as simple as adding them to an answer. In this case, you would just press the item, search for the items that come from SAP into the system. They're synced, obviously, and you can just add the item accordingly. You'll notice that we have a quantity from, so it could be a quantity, a fixed quantity, or as we go further into the model, we can pull values from answers selected, or even from numeric values that are inserted. Simply by adding a question, we just put an SAP type trailer. Don't think for a minute they'll ever make an SAP trailer, but you can see there that once we make it the default answer, we can reach out to an image and assign an image very easily, and as I said, we can reach out to an item and assign an item very easily. And because this is now the default, when I run it, you can see there the default trailer comes up with the item that I've just assigned to it. Okay. Now, let's say, for instance, as an example to show you how we create dependencies, if I wanted to say that this particular trailer cannot have twin-wheel trailers, I can do it one of two ways. And again, we educate the product expert on how to get the best out of the system. If this is a very simple one answer that I want to take out, I just create a negative exception. A negative exception is basically telling the system that should a user select answer SAP trailer, not to allow them to have twin-wheeled axles. So you can see there, it takes out the answer where the exception has been created or set on. We can do that both in a negative and a positive sense by checking this box. So it's like saying if we choose a trailer, then it's got to have the twin-wheeled axle. Okay, and again, you're not limited to single, we can do multiple. So if we're choosing, let's say for instance we were choosing a single, let's say this particular trailer can only have 3 axles. So I'm setting a multiple exception based on this condition just by control click. Everything I do, I'm showing you obviously control click, but we could extend that logic and create that logic and pull it into the system using an Excel spreadsheet, which allows you to maintain it and gives you, it's nice and easier to maintain. And the other way, of course, we have the ability to create what we call an exception, and a relationship, I apologize. So if for instance, we wanted to display an image, or we wanted to set the items based on this relationship, I can do so. I can add the items because it's created a relationship that's saying if it's an SAP trailer and double or twin-wheeled axles, show these items that I assigned to it. Similar to the exceptions, we can import those in a spreadsheet, and we can do multiple relationships, so you're not limited to just to do one. Again, it's showing the product expert the best way to use the system, and obviously some tools. We're always developing tools to help the user to build their products or embed their products quickly and easier into the system. Should I want to put in a calculation or a user input, I would change it to a numeric. It opens up the calculation tab. If I change to a calculated, this becomes an invisible calculation. We don't have to label it, but if we just label it, probably calc 1 in this instance as a value, as an example, and I can choose to pull the values above it into this calculation. So if somebody does choose the number of double axles, I can then start building a calculation that says, okay, let's multiply it by something. I don't know, by whatever the operator needs to be. Let's then look out for a table, and we can upload a table that can be used for cross-reference, it can be used for values, and we would label that, name that table, Excel spreadsheet, we'd cross-reference it, we'd pull it into the equation, the spreadsheet name would be in this top field, and then again we can use that value, etc., etc. And whatever the result is of that calculation, we can tie that or assign that to one of the items that, again, we'll put it in this particular one. We can pull that in. Or if we go further down, we can pull that value in there also, because it carries through, allowing you to add calculations or assign calculations to any of the answers beneath it. Okay. Other questions or other types of questions, as you see there, is we have just a simple text input. We have an item filter, so we can filter on the attributes of the item. And the last one being a model chain. And so we could actually have, in this example as a trailer, we could have a model for possibly for the axles, we could have possibly a model for the chassis, the bed, the cab, etc., etc. And you can navigate the user to one or many models in the system. Okay, so that was again, covering it very quickly, but I just want to show how easy it is and how quick a person or a product expert can embed their logic into the system. As I said, it's a number of hours to train them, and then they're in complete control, because they can add as many questions or add as many answers and dependencies as they want to. So that's the end of, I think, of my presentation, and I'm now going to just open it up to see if there are any questions, and if not, I'm going to put my PowerPoint on so you can see my contact details and we can talk offline.